I want to go ahead and have Mike Balban come up and join us. You can now pop onto your video. And I think, Mike, I can actually invite you. Let's see, there we go. How are you, Mike?
I'm good. Can you see me yet?
I can, yes, I can see you.
I only see you. Should I be seeing both of us?
Yeah, well, if you can see yourself, you're fine.
I don't.
Um,
I only see you.
can you see yourself?
Nope. I only see you.
Okay, well, I can see you. I can
Okay.
see you. You're good. You're good. I would pull it up a little bit because I can also see you just a little bit higher. There you go. That's good. That's good. That's great. So welcome, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm a little frazzled. I spent more than an hour and about 40 different ways of trying to get into this thing. Keep
Okay.
getting told that I couldn't, that I had to go back to square one, and you guys are all tied up. So I was kind of panicking that I wouldn't make it, but here I am. So hopefully my heartbeat will slow down.
Okay, well, I hope you can breathe for a moment and enjoy being here.
Yeah.
Mike actually was just in the UK and visiting some friends, and he actually had a BAMR meetup, which is part of his branding. Let me introduce Mike a little bit for you all here in the masterclass. His actual topic is finding joy in the storytelling and sharing of our lived experiences. He is a first person lived experience LGBTQ storyteller. He uses words, photos, and his podcast to reinvigorate our community to really look back and also document our history. Mike, I did a little reading on you. I think 30 years or so of work in Asia with extensive network of contacts there, but 23 years engaged in voluntary board work for our community. And I had noted that you, several nonprofits, civil rights, education, various philanthropic ventures, and a founding foreman and former chairman of the board at Athlete Ally, which is really exciting. And then you're currently focused on BAMR.com, an LGBTQ first person history repository. It's also an Instagram account, and this community is a platform that you created in 2018 and have been thereafter. So I hope that's a good enough intro for everyone here to
It's
understand.
actually hammer.co.
.co. All right. All right, so let's talk about your topic, Mike. You wanted to talk about finding joy in storytelling and encourage our audience around why storytelling and shared lived experiences are so beneficial.
Well, something Brian was saying rang true, which really comes down to if you like people or not. And those who don't like people, who might be super introverted, have a tougher road to hoe, and it's harder to reach them. But by and large, most people to some degree do enjoy other people. And in so doing, maintaining friendships, making friendships, and holding on to them throughout your life. My camera suddenly went off. Are you able to see me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, they it's not easy. It's kind of an art, and it requires constant vigilance, because the older people get, the more focused inward they become, and the less open to new influences they become. And so I'm going to just go back a little bit to how I got into my storytelling groove, which is that from an early age, I documented my life. I knew I was an outsider and different from other boys. And in order to appear like everyone else, I observed them carefully and copied them and documented all those facts about the way they lived and behaved. And I now have those in my repository of memories. And I have a steel trap mind for detail. So the combination of having noticed how everyone was and how I fit into that stayed with me, and along the way I was chronicling my life. I was saving photos that I took so I would remember what I looked like and my friends looked like. I was saving documents. I have a list of all the bars I visited traveling across the country on the summer trip where I came out in 1979, of every bar I went into and what it was like. And how many people save those things 40 or 50 years later? I just knew I would want it. And so when I left my Wall Street job and my Asia consulting career in the mid teens, I was still on some nonprofit boards, but life suddenly became a lot less full. And I didn't realize that those photos that I'd taken over 40 years would be so meaningful. But I started to show them on my Instagram account, and lo and behold, I built about 26,000 or so followers who love the window into what it was like to live in an era that they didn't live in, when people met in bars, when there was a more natural existence, when everyone wasn't taking selfies every 5 seconds. And so I put these photos up initially just by themselves, then with a little 3-line, description of what was going on, and eventually a 400-word narrative describing what was going on in those pictures, what it was like then, what it's like versus now, and trying to draw people into our history, because many young people I talk to aren't even aware of how difficult AIDS was, how everyone was holding on to their friends as they died, visiting them in hospitals, attending wakes. I mean, it was a life for 15 years. And today's youth have no idea it existed. They're kind of vaguely aware of AIDS. So I try to bring those stories up to make people aware, because, by the way, there's a quote from George Santayana and then Churchill that those who don't understand their history are condemned to repeat it. And if you look at what was going on with Governor DeSantis in Florida and the Don't Say Gay bill over the last year, that's a total repeat of what happened with Anita Bryant, the orange juice queen in New York, in Florida in 1978. And knowing how we won back then can help us fight those battles again. So 25-year-olds need to be aware of that. And so educating themselves about our history can be extremely valuable going forward. So anyway, I started to tell my stories, and I collected a community of people that followed me. And I engage everyone. If you send me a direct message, I respond. If you comment, I reply. It's all about creating community through engagement. And I began to tell my story, but I encouraged them to share back some of theirs. And from that, I grew into a larger universe of a podcast interview series, of a website with 200 stories from LGBT, excuse me, as Brian would say, lesbian, gay, bisexual,
Yeah.
transgender, and queer people around the world submitting stories from their life, a Twitter, a Threads, basically I have 5 or 6 platforms, including TikTok, which is kind of just beginning. And I tell my stories, but I get them to tell theirs. And in so doing, if I share with you my story and I ask you to share with me yours, if we have an ounce of empathy within our bodies, we begin to feel a little bit closer to each other. And that builds what is real community, not the performative community that comes out in June when we all say we're proud and then we go back to biting each other's heads off the rest of the year. And so what I'm really hoping is that we can reach people. I'll give the hardest example I can think of. I have several friends who are gay men who are basically transphobic. They won't call it that. They won't admit to it. But the fact of the matter is, they are so selfishly absorbed in their own life that they cannot see the parallels between somebody who's trans and fighting gender dysphoria and exactly what happened to them when they were hiding their gayness for 10 or 15 years and fighting against that. And the parallels are identical. Yes, one is about sexual identity, and one is about sexual orientation. But effectively, you went through the same process, and you ought to be empathetic and supportive of people going through that the way you did. And they are part of our family, no matter what you say, and we are part of theirs. And if we could only come together and acknowledge our similarities, not our differences, we might find that there was a more unified queer community to fight the right wing in this very difficult environment where they're trying to pick us apart with wedge issues and demonizing what's different. So I happen to believe we will prevail, but it's going to take 10 or 15 years for the trans community to become acceptable, just the way it took that long for the lesbian and gay community to become acceptable in the 70s. So that's a long way of introducing what I've been doing, which is trying to draw people in to storytelling.
Yeah, no, that's great, Mike. But it's exactly right. So just because, and I don't think it's a new issue, Mike, what you're addressing. There's sort of the lived experience, right? I can go as far as my lived experience and just stop right there, right? So if I'm a gay white male, I can stop right here. I could ignore the Black community. I could ignore the female community. I could ignore the trans community, right? And we have examples. Just because you're in the rainbow doesn't mean that you've taken the time, right, to listen to lean into the stories of those around you and made them part of your own story, right? Part of your own human experience.
It goes even further. Um, I found myself with people following me from Laos and Paraguay and places around the world that I knew existed, but I had no connection to. And some of them were in places where you can't be open about who you are. And I found myself saying, look, we're all part of the family. You are part of us, no matter whether you can be truly who you are or not. So if you can't be open about it in your country, reach out to us privately. We'll give you advice. We'll be supportive. Maybe we can change the attitudes in your country over time. If not, maybe we can get you out to safety into a country of refuge. And I worked for a year and a half with a Turkmenistani who'd been beaten, tortured, and imprisoned in his country for being gay. And with the help of Rainbow Railroad, a wonderful organization that works with refugees, we got him out to a country in Europe, which I won't mention because I don't want to get them in trouble for accepting this refugee. But we need to do that over and over and over. They are just like us. They just aren't born in the right country, the right skin, the right sex, whatever, to be in a favorable position. But we can still be helpful and supportive. So the community that I want to be a part of is everywhere. If they are LGBTQ, they're part of my family, and I will do what I can from here to try to support them.
That's awesome, Mike, and very inspiring. What is the and that's part of the internet, right? That's part of the joy of having the platform you created. Tell us more about, was it Rainbow Railroad? Can you describe that a little bit more for
Yeah,
those?
Rainbow Railroad is like the Underground Railroad for LGBTQ people. So they work to bring, they took a couple of hundred refugees out of Afghanistan when the country fell who were queer and got them out to London. It's tough because not many countries will take these people. It's an expensive and time consuming effort to work out the paths to sneak them out and get them to somewhere. They need lawyers helping them with legal support, but they have helped thousands of people, like something like 4 or 5 thousand a year. They get out to safety. Meanwhile, there are millions who need that help. So obviously, donate to them and other organizations like that if you don't already. We need to be aware that we are part of a larger universe. It's not just our little small world. And to the extent that we have any money left over or any time, we can try to help others benefit the way we have.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, that's beautiful, by the way, so you all can check that out. Tell me a little bit about this concept of family. And I think you have something that you're giving the group if they want it, right?
Yeah,
I-
if they'll send me their email address to bammer47@gmail.com, I have a list of kind of the 5 secrets to a life well lived for an LGBTQ person, and I'll tell them kind of 5 things they might want to follow. They may not. It's up to them, but I think it will make life go a little bit more smoother.
Yeah, I shared your email. We'll share that with everyone when they join, or sorry, when we do our notes at the end. So tell me a little bit, Mike, about how does successful living look like for you now, and how do you plan to continue the storytelling and the movement that you have founded in 2018?
Well, as you alluded earlier, when I travel, like last week in London, I organize a Bammer meetup. And all that is if you follow my Instagram page or one of my other social media, I alert you that I'm going to be in your location and I'm meeting at this bar or in this person's home on this date and time, and you're welcome to join. And they can be as small as 5 and as many as 40 people. And it's just an opportunity to get together and commune with other people who are like-minded, who share the same kind of philosophy, and who value our community's history. And so I do that. That's part of how I keep this kind of movement growing. The other thing I try to do is I try to give and to give back. I belong to multiple nonprofits. I'm on the boards of several. Um, it's all about making the world a better place for the people who come after us. And the other thing I do is I believe that we all naturally tend to congregate with others exactly like ourselves. Gay white men tend to hang around mostly with gay white men. I did find out one little interesting difference when I went to an all black weekend. I was one of 2 whites out of 322 people in Cancun in 2019 for an LGBT cultural festival. And it was half men and half women. And I was a little stunned because when you go to a white gay organizational effort, it's usually 98% men, you know, maybe a couple of lesbian or straight women who have gay male friends. And I asked, why are there so many women here? And the
Yeah.
answer was, if we're part of the black race in that minority and we're LGBTQ, then we belong to 2 minority classes and we have to choose. And of the 2, there's one you can't hide. That's your skin color. You might hide your sexual orientation or gender identity. So the one that takes precedence is race over sexual orientation and gender identity. And therefore, if another black person walked into the room, they're welcomed, whether they're male, female, what have you. And that's why there was half and half, men and women. So, but by and large, we tend to hang around with people exactly like ourselves. And another part of my philosophy is, if you don't naturally have an opportunity to get to know other people who are not like yourself, I hope you will look for opportunities in the course of life that are comfortable and natural to meet people who are a different skin color, a different age, a different race, a different gender, a different nationality, because you can learn so much. And that's where bringing each other closer together through storytelling can work extra dividends.
Absolutely. In fact, I actually believe in manifesting that um, pretty aggressively. Now, I have the blessing of living in Atlanta, right? So, depending on where you live, some of you all who are listening to this don't live in a major metropolitan area, so it's a little harder for you to maybe find some variety. But the reality is, I can tell you, as we're talking, Mike, right? So we've got Gabrielle and Marcy in our team, but I have loved the relationship I've been able to create with various lesbians or various straight women or various straight men, right? Like just pick your area that
Or
you
the
may not have.
Black community of Atlanta.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, beautiful. And so much wisdom, so much the more you get to know every culture, we have such a gift here in America to be able to do that. It's a spice of life. Tell me a little bit about the stories that you tell as you capture the stories, Mike. What are you looking to gain, and how can people engage you? Can people be a part of your storytelling? How best can they engage with your work?
Well, it depends on how much of your story you want to tell. We're not doing as much of the Bammer.co website storytelling because I no longer have my story editor. But submit a story, that you've written, 2 to 5 pages from your life. We'll try to see what we can do with it. Maybe put it up on the website. But otherwise, just through your comments on YouTube or your comments on Instagram, volunteer how your life is as opposed to mine or whoever else is speaking at that moment, and engage in a kind of connecting with each other through those social media. And that's really where I try to get people to share their stories. I also feel like, I was recently on the phone with a 44-year-old who began coming out 4 years ago, and whose 15-year-old son came out at that time and is now 19 and living with him. So there's a gay father and gay son. And that's on one end of the spectrum, a 19-year-old who I was chatting with. On the other end of the spectrum, one of my interviewees for my podcast series was a World War II veteran navigator who flew 28 bombing missions over Nazi Germany during World War II and crash landed and nearly died in the North Sea. And he's turning 100 years old in June. And I'm going back for his birthday party. Every time I'm in New York, I go have brandy with him, and I don't drink. So the point is, I have 100-year-olds and I have 19-year-olds in my life. I believe that the value comes from the richness and the tapestry of life that you get from different people, not with everyone else, just like yourself.
That's very fair. Well, good. I don't know, Mike, do we have, what else do we want to chat through? I think we have a few more minutes.
Well, I think people people have a lot of things they don't have answers to, right? And a lot of times they're afraid to talk about them. And on my page, I write about the things that we often talk about with close friends but don't see written about and shared. And I try to make people realize you have no shame. There's nothing to be guilty or feel bad about. Whatever thoughts and questions you have, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, there's nothing wrong with it. Bring it out in the open, like Brian said. Talking about things, airing them, will make us all feel better. So on my page, reach out to me or to the community there. Suggest topics that you want to see covered. Volunteer information and knowledge that you have that maybe we don't. But one thing I do recommend is whenever you're talking to someone, be respectful, listen to them. If they don't agree with you, don't scream at and denigrate them and tell them they're bad or wrong. Try to find ways to agree, and if you can't, at least agree to disagree. There's such a thing as a respectful global family, and we've kind of lost a lot of that uh, in a lot of ways with all the political partisanship going on in our country now. So I try to create a sense of belonging, a sense of respect, and a sense of inclusion.
Perfect. Perfect, Mike. Well, that is, I think those stories, it's interesting because I think it is once you sort of let down the walls of expectations and you really deal with the authentic reality of what your lived experience is, and when you find people you can share your actual lived experience with, you realize A, it's not as scary. B, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. Most of there's not a lot new under the sun, so to speak. And so there's a lot more healing that'll come from opening up about what you've experienced with others than it will come from hiding, for certain.
And you'll be happier.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well,
Healthier, wealthier, and happier.
and happier, absolutely happier. So I have included Mike's information in the chat. We'll put that in the summary as well. Mike, it's been a pleasure. Also for the audience to know, Mike helped us get a couple of the other speakers. He really is someone who has been building community and network for all of his life, especially in our community. And it's just really great to be able to connect with other generations of men and women who are doing the work and have done the work.
Well, I don't know about others, but I get no joy greater than connecting people. And one of the things I found from social media, there are a lot of bad things about it. It can pass bad information quicker than you know than
Yeah,
than than you'd like. But it has allowed me to reconnect with people whose photos I took and never got to know, or who I had a one night stand with 25 years ago and lost contact. And suddenly we're finding each other through social media. So use the good parts of it.
awesome. All right, I think we just lost Mike, which is fine.
No, a voicemail came in. I got rid of it.
Okay, it went down for a second, Mike. I was like, whoa, okay. No, I agree with you. We have to use the good parts, and but it's really having control over that, right? And I think a lot of us don't. We haven't learned the skills for how to say no, right? How
I
to
think
say
there
no.
are too many people that are just overwhelmed by life and its complexity in this world, and they take on the bad and they don't really focus on the good and figure out ways to get along with each other. Life doesn't need to be unhappy.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, thank you, Mike, so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate your work. And thank you
And
for
you for all you're doing. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to continuing to be a part of it.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Mike. Take care.
Gaily forward.
Right, absolutely. All right, so before we bring on our next speaker, cheers, Mike. Before we bring on our next speaker, I wanted to just share with you all another little tidbit, which is good for you to be aware of, and that is out on film. So the storytelling topic we just talked about with Mike is very relevant, and it's a very important part of LGBTQ progress. Oop, there we go. So Out on Film is a LGBTQ film fest and group here in Atlanta, Georgia. And they also have joined the Gaily Impact in promoting this event. And we wanted to be sure to turn back the love and promote their event, March 19th through 21st. They actually have a mini series Out on Film Queer All Year. You can get tickets. You get the link there on the oh, hey, Marcy. We got
Hey,
tickets. Hey, we got tickets available. Also, you can donate to the film festival as well if that's how you would like to participate. How you doing,
and I just
Marcy?
thought I'm good. I thought I'd jump in since you're talking about out on film.
Yeah,
Um, and I wanted to jump in because, the arts are so important. So, like, if we don't support the arts, they're going to go away. And I cannot impress enough how important it is for us as a community as a whole to make sure that we give back to the people that give to us. And out on film, listen, if you're in Atlanta, queer all year, you need to go to that. Go in there, tell Jim Farmer that the Gaily Impact sent you, and really enjoy one of the films. Listen to the Q&A. I promise you, you will not be disappointed in that.
totally agreed, Marcy. It's such an important part of it's really important of edification. It's like kind of like if you want to go hear the stories that you need to see, if you want to hear the latest news and the latest messaging that's going to move your thinking forward, that's the place to go. Period. All right.
That's me signing off.
Thank you. Cheers, Marcy.